suppose I'm going to speak about something that's nearly a byproduct of the MBA, and that's networking and I suppose leveraging the network of Smurfit, which is something that I really did when I was here. So I'm not your kind of boilerplate MBA. I worked myself since I left college back in whenever it was, in 1999, 2000, did a master's in DCU. Worked in a family business for kind of 15 years after that, grew it pretty well. But come early 2008, we had full-scale pneumonia when the rest of the country was only kind of getting a chill. And we were basically on our knees. So when it got to 2011, we had, I suppose, treaded water for a few years. I took a good long look at myself and said, I need to do something with myself here, because there's a possibility this business is not going to survive. And if that's the case, I suppose I need to have a way to make a living. So I had a good look around, researched various MBAs. I decided the MBA was the way to go for me. I decided to come to Smurfit. So when I suppose right now I've another couple of businesses that I've added on. I run a couple of small businesses now that employ between 6 and 10 people. I do a bit of consulting as well. But when I got to Smurfit, I said to myself, right, my own professional network is just not up to scratch. The likelihood is in the future I'm going to go and work for myself. I need to have a network that I can leverage. So I'm sure Orla will attest to this. Myself and a guy I met when I was here, Stephen, wore the carpet out in this place, knocking on the doors in the office. We scourged absolutely everybody. In November, in the first semester, we decided we were going to run an international entrepreneurship tournament for MBAs from all over the world, because I suppose you have to understand, when you're here, you get immersed in the whole MBA buzz and everything's about the MBA. So we decided we were going to run this tournament anyway, and we met with Orla, and it started from there, and we basically just leveraged the UCD network to within an inch of its life from there. Orla said you should meet, I think at the time, Pat Frayne, who used to run Nova up in UCD. You should meet the various entrepreneurship professors and that kind of thing. So before we knew it, Christmas time had come along. We had put a plan together and we said, right, we're going to go at this full tilt in semester 2, which we did. We missed loads of classes, but in 1 week alone we had pitched to John Hurley in Google, Katrina Hallahan in Microsoft, Louise Phelan in PayPal. We had an audience with the Taoiseach, believe it or not. The following week we were in London having breakfast in one of the big investment banks' clubhouse in London, when everybody else was here studying ethics. I think in the following weeks, all the various head honchos of the big four, we got an audience with them all. We did it all through the Smurfit network. It started small, but we basically expanded that out. Every single meeting we went to, we said, is there anybody else you think we should meet? Invariably, somebody would say, yeah, you should meet X guy. And before we knew it, it was actually our own network that we were leveraging off. But when we met Pat Frayne, he said to us, guys, if you guys are interested in this entrepreneurship thing, you need to go to Silicon Valley. So we said, okay. So when the midterm break came about, we hopped on a plane. 2.5 weeks around America, we went to Boston, Philadelphia, New York, Silicon Valley. We basically went to about 10 universities. We also met a couple of the kind of thought leaders, we'll say, or the captains of industry in Silicon Valley. In one day alone, in the morning time, we were with Roger McNamee, who runs Elevation Partners, who's Bono's VC fund. A guy called Adeo Ressi, who's kind of one of the old heads from Silicon Valley. He runs the Founders Fund. A guy called Bill McKiernan, who had just sold his business to Visa for $2 billion. The carpet was that thick in his office, should have seen, it was unreal. But yeah, so I mean, we had a great time. But at the very start of it, we kind of said, look, when we're going to run this tournament, we want X universities attending, and we want X speakers. And there was 10 guys that we had identified, and by the time we came to running it, we called it the MBA World Trophy, and by the time we came to running it, we had met 9 out of the 10 guys. The only guy we didn't meet was Jack Ma, who founded Alibaba, but we didn't even go to Asia, so I mean, that was never going to happen. But I actually could stand here on the Bible and say to you, if we wanted to meet him, we could have met him, because the network is that powerful that if you're clever about how you do it, there's nobody that you can't meet. So I suppose the pinnacle of the whole thing came when we met a guy called Steve Blank. I don't know whether anybody's interested in entrepreneurship here has heard of Steve Blank. He's kind of the father of modern entrepreneurship, but they say he's post-economic, he's richer than God. He has this big ranch out between San Francisco and Santa Cruz, and we got an audience with him. And when we undertook this project, we saw Brian McGrath, who's the Professor of Academic Affairs here, and he said to us, you can take it on as a capstone project, but you're going to get a C. And sure enough, we did get a C when we delivered the project, but we told this to Steve Blank, and he said to us, that's good, he said. So he went off and got a book that he had just published called I think it's called The Startup Guide, and he wrote a note in the front cover, and he said, dear Brian, thank you for sending me your A+ students. And we went out and we FedExed it straight over to Brian, so he was delighted with life. He even put a note in it and said, if you don't believe that it's me that wrote this, you can actually call me on my cell anytime. So I suppose moving on to the following year, when we actually ran the tournament, we had 19 universities from all over the world. We had from as far afield as Mexico. We had an Israeli team, NYU Stern, Columbia, New York, INSEAD, IE in Spain. Had all the guys in the room, ran a tournament over 3 days, and it was a great success. We had $20,000 in prize money. But coming back to the network effect again, the team that actually won the tournament was the team from Toronto, from the Rotman School of Business. And they had a data analytics company, but we introduced them to a guy who we had met in Silicon Valley who was at our tournament. He is the head of the Silicon Valley Band of Angels, a guy called Ron Wiseman. He now sits on their board. We also introduced him to one of the managing directors from Silicon Valley Bank who was here for the tournament. He introduced them to Procter & Gamble. They signed a $7 or $8 million deal within 6 months from there. So it comes back again to the kind of whole power of the network. So I suppose that's kind of my story. What I say to you is that if you're thinking of doing an MBA, like Smurfit is, in my opinion anyway, it's the premier program in the premier school in the country. But it's not an end to it's not the solution to everything. So I know there's a good few guys in my class didn't get anything out of it because they didn't know what they wanted out of it coming into it. So when we would have met virtually every venture capital guy in Ireland and all around the world when we were doing this, and they all have this hackneyed phrase that they use. They all say, what does success look like to you? So if you can figure that out, I would say absolutely. If you can see where you want to be at the end of the MBA program, go for it. It's like using a motoring analogy to strapping a supercharger to your engine of the car. If you go and pay 20 grand for a supercharger, you don't put it in the boot of your car. You need to figure out how to kind of use it to its best. So I'd say I have nothing but positive things to say about it anyway.
Yeah.